cut you down. Sooner or later, God'll cut you down.
Welcome back to the Werewolf Movie Channel, where we take a fun and light-hearted look at werewolf movies throughout history. Anyone who makes it their business to watch werewolf movies on a regular basis will tell you that the genre is roughly 10% masterpieces and 90% graveyard of ambition, containing some of the most unintentionally hilarious and entirely mediocre and forgettable moments ever put to celluloid. It is my great pleasure to confirm that Werewolves of the Third Reich sits right in the middle of the ambition graveyard in its very own beautifully carved Gothic mausoleum of shame. If you have any American friends, do yourself a favour and sit them down with you to watch this movie, because they will get a whole layer of comedy out of this that my fellow Brits probably won't, for reasons that will soon become apparent. I'm sorry, for reasons that will soon become apparent. Sarge. Directed by prolific writer, filmmaker and producer Andrew Jones, Werewolves of the Third Reich is another in a long line of the derivative straight-to-video genre releases that he specialises in. Other titles include The Exorcism of Anna Eklund, The Curse of Robert the Doll, Jurassic Predator, Poltergeist Activity, and Last House on the Cemetery Lane. So don't go into this expecting a ton of original ideas. Jones's openly stated intent is to make Roger Corman-style content, so you can't really be too hard on the guy. Any stuff that is excessively cheesy could well be deliberate, and this is low-budget filmmaking. You do what you can do, you make do with what you have. Here's my problem. If that's his intent, he does not go nearly far enough. I could see myself really enjoying a much more stylised, grindhouse, openly humorous B-movie take on this premise. I would watch the shit out of that, right? I would have that on repeat. And when you hear a title like Werewolves of the Third Reich, my first response was, oh, this is going to be f***ing silly. I was looking forward to it. But unfortunately, instead, it's played entirely straight, and it seems to want us to take it seriously, and it presents everything in a very flat drama kind of context. Here's what's happened. They've watched Inglourious Bastards and thought, I can do that. They use the same chapter structure, and the film follows the same basic story of a small group of rebels operating behind enemy lines in Nazi-era Germany. But, however you might feel about his films and the man personally, one does not simply attempt to do Tarantino without Tarantino's skill set, budget, or cast, and expect the same results. The film opens on a retread of the tense bar scene from Inglourious. The scene is competently lit and it's quite nicely shot, although the handheld Steadicam really screws up the cinematic look they seem to be going for here. All the individual elements are there and just about past muster, but the sense of an inferior impression of something else you've already seen is already, sadly, palpable. Here we meet the first of our main characters, Mad Dog Murphy, played by Lee Bain, who actually appears to have produced a few of Jones' other films. Mad Dog is a grizzled American soldier who comes from... Actually, let's check his accent to see what part of America this guy comes from.
Because if I'm going down for the dirt nap, I'd rather not be speaking in Nazi tongue now.
Swansea, right, glad we sorted that out. Mad Dog quickly establishes himself as the most badass Welsh-American Welshman to grace our screens in almost literally minutes. He is being reprimanded savagely by his fellow American GI, Hyde. Let's do an accent check on Hyde to see whereabouts in the States he comes from.
You don't have permission to leave the base, Mad Dog.
Essex, Montana. Right, good. It's just behind the Swansea part of Texas you probably haven't heard of. We established that Mad Dog is a mad dog who will not... you can't make him, you get the idea. As an SS officer walks in and begins scrutinising the obvious non-Germans and a minor league walkthrough of the much better scene from Inglourious Bastards plays out, Hyde and Mad Dog are backed up by Billy the Butcher, played by Derek Nelson. Let's just check what part of America Billy the Butcher comes from.
What he means is, I've had a knife pointed at your ass since you sat down.
London, jolly good. The moment explodes into violence, but... not the satisfying blood-soaked catharsis of Inglourious Bastards. It's the digital muzzle flare, digital blood, and badly dubbed version, and only the Nazi bartender remains, who speaks English about as well as our heroes speak in American. At this stage, you are probably starting to spot the accents are a pretty major problem here. This is also the only time you'll hear any German spoken for the entire film. From this point on, even if two Germans are speaking in private in Germany, they will do the standard LO comedy German accents, and it's not good. It's not. We cut to World War II's most understaffed German prison camp, containing only 4 incredibly well-fed prisoners of war. We welcome another member of the comedy accent crew in the form of Ilse Koch, played by Susie Francis Garton. We establish that these subjects are being held for medical testing, and that Koch clearly calls the shots. Am I pronouncing that right? Koch? Koch. That's her name, right? Koch. After which we have an interesting scene between Dr. Mengele and Hitler himself. Quick accent check on Hitler.
I'm told you have a breakthrough in your research at Camp 7.
Jesus f***ing Christ. These two fierce German nationalists are for some reason speaking in English in a private conversation, but at this point I'm so clocked out of the drama that it barely registers. This is also the point at which my favourite actor in the whole film makes his debut, Gareth Lawrence as SS Officer Hess, interrogating an inventor of a mysterious serum about to sell it to the Americans. This guy truly knows what film he's in and is clearly having a lot of fun playing an unapologetic bastard. He is a ton of fun to watch. His introduction scene is one of the strongest scenes in the movie, but is unfortunately followed immediately by a horribly ham-fisted scene which is slowed down to recreate slow motion while clearly not having been shot for slow motion, culminating in some genuinely bad CGI blood effects. And then we're introduced to another one of our central badasses, Fightin' Joe Kane, played by Darren Smith. And this scene is...
You're a queer as well as a coward, Private Kane?
No, sir.
Well, yeah.
Do you like to suck dick, Private Kane?
No, sir.
Yeah. Kane is chucked in the back of a military truck with our other unsuitable sorts, and we meet our team's final member, Reckless Reggie Brown, played by Kwame Augustine, who takes home the dubious award for most convincing accent in the movie.
What about me?
Which is where this film is concerned is a bit like getting a reward for having the least herpes in the gangbang, but credit where it's due, Kwame, you got it. He's another obvious UK resident, and his real accent pokes through very occasionally, but he's a lot more convincing as a genuine Yank than the rest of them. I know I've gone on a lot about the accents thing a lot, and I promise I'll shut up about it now, right? But it's one of the things that really pulled me out of the film a lot, and I wanted to love this. Our 4 central characters, united through punishment for disobeying authority, are now in the back of a truck being taken by their own side to another base, presumably to be court-martialed. Now, I'm assuming this takes place in Germany during the Second World War, but the Americans have their own bases within that area. At the start of the film, Mad Dog and Billy are told by Hyde that they're not supposed to go off base without permission. Please, can one of my more history-aware viewers leave a comment? During World War II, did the Americans have their own bases with their own little trucks driving people around inside Nazi Germany? They get ambushed here by a Nazi commander, and I'm sitting here as viewer going, well... yeah, what did you expect? How many towns did you have to drive through or past in your obviously not Nazi big green army truck on your way to your behind enemy lines yet somehow secret American airbase? Like, this is the very opposite of wartime covert behind enemy lines operations. I'm going to stop thinking about it now, right? Because it's bringing back the rage. Leave a comment and help me calm myself because I really can't take any more of the pills. The pills! I can't take any more. They get ambushed by another guy who's playing the British idea of a Nazi, i.e. someone completely evil who knows they're evil and loves it. But the problem is, you can't play the bad guy like they know they're the bad guy, because nobody thinks of themselves that way, especially not truly shitty people with very little empathy. Those people are in fact the most likely to craft themselves an unrealistic interior narrative where they are a misunderstood hero. So this comedy evil moustache twirling stuff is just unintentionally hilarious. This guy in particular doesn't play the SS officer as the neurotic, uptight, small-minded, conformist fascist they often were. He plays it like the baddie in a straight-to-video animated Disney sequel. All through this film there's a creeping sense of trying just 10% too hard to overcompensate for the lack of budget. Like this slightly too moody walk where instead of being arranged properly in a shot, they're all doing a bit too much of a swaggering lead performance, like 4 guitarists all trying to solo at the same time. Also, we are now halfway through a film called Werewolves of the Third Reich, and we haven't seen a hint of a werewolf yet, only heard about the possibility. I'm just saying. Then it's time for a bit of Nazi domestic drama between Ilse and Mengele. It's like an episode of Neighbours, but with Nazis. So Nazis, everybody needs good Nazis, just a little. It turns out that Ilsa is having a bit of the old Sig Heil on the side with SS Officer Becker, played by Francesco Tribuzio. And unfortunately for both of them, Mengele has found out. In revenge, Mengele selects Brecker as the first test subject for their newly acquired werewolf serum, transforming him into the first Werewolf of the Third Reich. Now, any werewolf fan is going to be wondering what kind of werewolf we're going to be dealing with physically. There's clearly not a huge budget, but it is, after all, a werewolf movie, so the creature itself can reasonably be expected to be the main attraction, especially when it's been held back for so much of the runtime. So, what are we going to get? Let's roll the dice of werewolfism. Are we going to get a cheap CGI werewolf? Or a crap costume that looks okay when shot briefly in low light but doesn't stand up to scrutiny? It turns out we get neither. You see, a better name for this film might have been reasonably good facial prosthetics of the Third Reich, because that's what you get. Don't get me wrong, the face makeup is pretty damn good. It's shown from a lot of angles in full light, and it looks decent even under those circumstances. But is this it? Is this your werewolf? When I hear Werewolves of the Third Reich, I picture something more akin to the nightmare sequence from American Werewolf in London, stretched out to 90 minutes of blood-soaked fury. This is... They glued ginger hair to his f***ing hands, man! And it's not strictly a werewolf. There's no transformation back and forth with the tides of the moon. No uncontrollable bloodlust thing, no dual identity. It's just sort of a facial mutant with plastic claws. After waiting over an hour to see this, I can't lie, it's disappointing. A heartbroken Ilsa is unable to summon up the courage to put her lover out of his misery, decides that if he can't beat them, join them, and injects herself with the werewolf serum, and we begin Chapter 7, Siege at Camp 7. Oh, I see what you did there. Our heroes come across the German facility in their leisurely stroll across enemy territory and decide to get involved. Throughout this next scene, you can really feel the lack of extras in the budget. This obviously abandoned building could have looked a fair bit more convincing if we just saw a couple more bodies moving around working in the background. They probably could have used 3 extras for the whole movie, put them in different outfits for each scene, and just had a more populated looking world. Anyway, they break it, look, my script at this point just says tedious gunfight, tedious gunfight, tedious gunfight. Alright? So I'm going to close the script down. And look, I attempted to watch this film 3 times. At first, I was sitting down with my friend, I said, hey, this looks fun, Werewolves of the Third Reich. Put 5 minutes of it on and we were like, oh my God, this is no. Then the second time she was around, I said, let's watch it for a laugh. And I got about 2/3 of the way through. This film lacks a climax. This film is all foreplay and no aftercare. No one's coming through on anything here. What should happen is Ilsa and Fabrizio should then start biting everyone. The werewolf curse should spread, and everything should just go insane. Everyone should be getting their faces torn off. It's just blood-soaked frenzy. You've held the budget back, right? Spend it on horses' guts and just strew them everywhere with fake blood for an afternoon, and just do that. Film loads of it. Loads of loud music. A climax, man. And it's just not that. The plot threads sort of start. Elsa gets her own back on Mengele, I think, and eats him. I can't remember. I've watched this film 3 times. I can't remember how it ends. At this point, this is the problem. You're just not invested. Now, this film cost me nothing to watch, and I'm sure it cost a good deal more than nothing to make. And in the end of the day, as easy it is to rag on other people's efforts, I've never made a film, and I know for a fact, because I have friends that do make films and do act in films and do produce films, that this is no easy job. So I have immense respect for anyone who pulls it off and who ends up getting their thing on Netflix. I haven't got anything on Netflix. Nothing on Netflix starring Greg BLACKMAN, no sir. But I've got to be honest with you when I encounter a film that's not great. So let's be clear. This is not an attack on any of the people, any of the actors, any of the crew, any of the cast. I wish you all the absolute best. I hope you all go on to do much more work. I want to see artists doing their art. I want to see filmmakers making their films. I want to see actors acting. Stay working, please. Make a million more films, all right? This is not me in any way attacking any of these people. This is a werewolf movie review channel, and I watch these things in isolation, and I'm happy to mention some of the surrounding things, but too often people resort to attacking the individuals and the people involved. I think the accents are a bit pants in this, and I can see the low budget peeping through. But to be perfectly honest with you, I downloaded the other day a free audiobook of Clive Barker's early stories. Right? I was like, oh my God, the Books of Blood are some of my favourite stories of all time. There's actually an entire playlist with hours and hours of me narrating them. I'll put the link down in the place where you put links. And I downloaded these early stories. I thought this is going to be great. And they were shite. They were shite. Sometimes on your way to making great work, you have to make a few things that aren't so great. So salute to the people, solid 6 out of 10 effort. I'm sure the next one will be brilliant, but I'm afraid to say I cannot recommend to any of my viewers watching Werewolves of the Third Reich. I went in hoping it would be a outrageous, over-the-top B-movie, and the end result was unfortunately not that. It was subdued, it was pedestrian, and it was the very opposite of over-the-top. It was under the top. You can see why I don't do this for a living. Anyway, there you go. Slightly shorter episode this month because I thought you were all wonderfully patient in waiting through an hour and 13 of my babble talking about 2 films at once last month. Here's just a reminder that on my Patreon, you can ultimately, if you wish, force me to review my least favourite film of all time that makes me reach for the pills, American Werewolf in Paris. I'm not ever going to do it for free, but should the time ever come where we have like 20 patrons at the top dog level or 200 patrons in total, which is thankfully for me a whole long way off, please don't go and add to that number, because when we get to either of those numbers, I'm going to have to review it. I'm also preparing a little something just for my Patreon, which is not a werewolf movie review. It's more a little video about some of my motivations and why I like werewolf movies, why I find that some of the themes resonate with me, and a little bit about my personal backstory that you guys wouldn't know unless I tell you. Also, question. If I put the audio of these episodes on a Bandcamp page and charged, I don't know, like $1.99 for each of them, is that something you'd be interested in? I could even put the Johnny Cash cover that we start and finish with in there in its full version. It's only about 2 minutes long, but if you like it, you could get it. What do you think? Is that something you guys would enjoy? Bandcamp page? Do, please, let me know. Thanks again for liking, commenting, subscribing, and doing all that wonderful stuff that you do while you are being the being that you be. I am, have been, and continue to be Greg Blackman, your host. Stay safe out there, lock up the family silver, stay off the moors, and I'll see you next month. Aroo and shit.